It wasn't a great game against the Penguins for the Blue Jackets, but are we really surprised? I'm not. We're going to break that down. Plus, a bunch of moves got made yesterday, and that's coming up on today's Locked On Blue Jackets.
You're Locked On Blue Jackets, your daily podcast on the Columbus Blue Jackets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to Locked On Blue Jackets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I am, as always, your host, Jay Foster, here to give you the good, the bad, and the ugly about your favorite team and mine, the Columbus Blue Jackets. Before we get things started, I want to thank everyone for making this your first listen of the day every single day. Locked On Blue Jackets is free and available on all podcast platforms and over on YouTube. I also have to let you know that today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Download the app now by visiting FanDuel.com, and you can win $300 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. We're not going to spend a ton of time on Saturday's game against the Penguins. It went about as I expected, but there were a couple of surprises in a positive way. So we're going to talk about those. And the big AHL cut round has arrived. There are some surprises there. There are some disappointments there. We're going to break down who's going where and how likely they are to get where they're going, because waiver time is upon us. But I wanted to talk a little bit about the game, first of all, because, like I said, the game went almost exactly as I expected it to. It was the big boys of the Penguins against the Blue Jackets, who were mostly, despite what the Pittsburgh play-by-play guy said, it was not essentially the opening night roster for the Blue Jackets, right? It was Cole Sillinger, Matthew Olivier, and friends, right? Like those were the big names. Erica Branson was there. Jake Christensen was there. Those are like, Igor Chinikov was there. So that's what, there was 5 names plus a goalie that are going to be in the lineup, going to be on the opening night roster. 4 of the defensemen not going to be on the opening night roster, 1 of the goalies, and like 9 of the 8 or 9 of the forwards are not going to be on the roster. So like it was a real the Pittsburgh Penguins beat the Cleveland Monsters plus Cole Sillinger type of game, right? Again, I'm not surprised. They got absolutely battered on the shot count. They got outshot 36-21. They got outscored 4-1. They got out-emotioned by Marc-Andre Fleury appearing in net, which I said this on Twitter. Like, unfortunately, I am not immune to the Marc-Andre Fleury narrative, right? I thought it was really cool to have him come back. I thought it was really touching that he and Crosby and Malkin and Letang got their photo together, because, they were the core 4, the original core 4 of kind of this generation of hockey, right? And I would have liked to win the game, but I'm not upset that they didn't, right? There were a lot of things going against the Blue Jackets' favor, a lot of things going for the Penguins. It is what it is, right? Again, I'm not mad about it. There are a couple of things I wanted to mention in terms of the game, though, because obviously, again, Blue Jackets badly outplayed. I wanted to give credit to a couple of guys that have just been sent down to the Monsters. Actually, we'll discuss that in a second. Luca Del Babaluz, with the goal for the Blue Jackets on an assist by Chinikov. I thought they worked really well together. I thought Luca Del Babaluz, again, has had a really, really strong preseason as a whole, and scored in the shootout as well. So shout out to Del Babaluz for again. He plays the same kind of game every time, and it's not super fancy. It is a skilled game, but it's not like, and this is no disrespect to Kent Johnson, but Kent Johnson's game is very flashy, pay attention to me, right? Luca Del Babaluz is a much more simplified, straightforward game. I don't think it's less skilled. I just think it's very much less complicated, right? And again, he got sent down to the Monsters yesterday. I'm not worried about that. He'll be back. It is what it is, right? I don't think there's a place in the roster for him in at least the top 6. I don't know that there's a place in the top 9 necessarily, and I'd rather have him playing 1C minutes in the AHL than sitting in the press box at the NHL level, right? So I thought he had a really good game. Someone else that stood out to me, and someone that I have been a fan of, for a while. James Malatesta had a pretty solid rookie season for the Monsters a couple of years ago. Had kind of a down season this most recent season, but again, I thought he had a really good preseason. Didn't really put up points, but did do a lot of annoying the other team, right? Like I think literally twice in 2 games I tweeted like, "Oh, look at the time. It's James Malatesta gets in a scrum o'clock." He is an undersized player and that's your problem. Really really good energy player. Again, is going to be a great bottom 6 player for the Blue Jackets. I don't think he's quite there yet, but he was in a game where there were not many noticeable players for the Blue Jackets. I thought James Malatesta was noticeable. So again, set down to the Monsters. I am unsurprised by this. I don't know that we'll see him necessarily. I don't know off the top of my head like where I would put him in terms of like most likely to be called up, right? And I do think it probably depends on what the need for the club is. Do they need a top 6 guy? Do they need a bottom 6 guy? Do they need a center, etc., etc.? But like James Malatesta, I think, is definitely 1, maybe 2 seasons away from being a really good option in the bottom 6 for this club, which is a good sign for. I believe James Malatesta was a 5th round draft pick from like 4 seasons ago, so that's it. Again, getting any NHL time as a 5th round pick is a win. Getting significant NHL time is even better than that, and I think that we can. I don't necessarily know that he's part of the future, but I do think that there is an NHL job for him as and when he is ready to take it, right? So those were a couple of the standouts. Again, Jake Christensen continues to stand out for me. I thought he had kind of a rough night last night. Not the worst night that I've seen any defenseman have, but he was very much, I think, and again, this is just kind of the nature of how the game went, He played a lot of minutes, and a lot of his minutes came against the big boys, right? The Crosby, the Malkin lines, etc. And I think he struggled a little bit, but not as much as I was expecting him to, right? I know he was on the ice for 3 goals against. Plus minus is basically useless to me as a stat. But he, I think, it was very much him against the world. It was him, Eric Branson, who again is a 3rd pairing guy, and then 3 AHLers and Brendan Smith, who just got released from his PTO yesterday as well. Again, we'll talk about that in a second here, but like it was very much Jake Christensen against the world, and I think he did the best he could with a really, really tough assignment. So again, shout out to Jake Christensen, who continues to impress as this preseason goes on. I don't know what the opening 6 is going to look like, and when I say the opening 6, I mean the top 6 defensemen. But I really hope that Jake Christensen is on the top 6 because I really do think that he's earned it. We're going to take a quick break, and then I want to talk a little bit about Elvis because you know that we love to talk about goalies on this show, and frankly, I thought Elvis had a really good night, apart from that one moment, which unfortunately is a thing that you could say about a lot of Elvis games. So we'll talk about that in just a second here at Locked On Blue Jackets. First, I've got to tell you about Monarch Money. Most people can't name all their financial accounts or even what they're worth, whether it's 401ks, properties, investments, and when you don't have the full picture, you can end up leaving money on the table, and that's where Monarch Money comes in. It is an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or on your phone. And it's built for people with busy lives as well. If you've put off organizing your finances, Monarch is for you. It does all of the heavy lifting for you. You can link all your accounts in minutes, see clear data visuals, get smart categorization of your spending, and finally feel in control of your money without ever touching a spreadsheet. I'm on vacation right now and trying to not spend too much money, and Monarch has been really great for keeping me just kind of in tune with what my budget looks like and how I have to stop buying $15 sandwiches for lunch just because the sandwich place looks really good, right? Don't let financial opportunities slip through the cracks. Use code LOCKEDONNHL at monarchmoney.com in your browser for 50% off your first year. That's 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com with code LOCKEDONNHL. Welcome back to Locked On Blue Jackets. We talked a little bit about the game to Pittsburgh as a whole and how no one really had a good game except for a couple of guys. But you know who did have a surprisingly good game? I really liked Elvis Merzlikins' game. He allowed 3 goals, yes, but he also faced 35 shots in the game. Really didn't get any help from his defensemen, from his forwards. He didn't get the run support from the goal scoring. So, like, yes, it looks bad. The score looks wonky. 4-1 losses is not great, but I'm not going to sit here and say that Elvis didn't have a good game because, frankly, and again, granted, I didn't get to watch all of the first period, but I thought in the second period and the third period, he was really very, very good indeed. The third goal was a very. Sometimes Elvis just does that, right? And I wish he would go on fewer adventures. Some goalies are allowed to go on adventures. Elvis, I don't think is allowed to go on adventures anymore. And I was kind of talking to a listener on Twitter about this. Of like, apart from that one blooper, he did play very well, right? Again, 32 saves on 35 shots is a 914 save percentage. That's pretty good, right? I don't look at GAA as a goalie stat because I don't think that it's a very useful one. So, you know, of this typical goalie stats that we get on, NHL.com or whatever, save percentage to me is the most important of the lot. I think wins is a team stat. I think GAA is a defense stat. Save percentage is, I think that there's more useful stats out there, but of the layman stats, I think save percentage is the best one. And a 914 is pretty decent, right? Especially when you look at the roster that the Penguins brought versus the roster that the Blue Jackets brought, right? Like I said, he got basically no help, and he made maybe 3 or 4 really, really A+ saves, especially in the second half of the game. Tough to give up that 2-1 goal with a second and a half left. I'm not really going to put that goal on him. I think again that was very much the defense should have had that, and also sometimes goals just go in, right? I think that very, very often, and I'm sure we'll talk about this a lot, as the regular season kicks in and goes on. But I feel like very often there's who's to blame for that goal, right? Who did the bad thing that made the goal happen, right? And sometimes a goal is just either a really good goal, or B, sometimes just a really unlucky goal, right? And this goal, I believe Elvis made the initial save, and then it bounced off of Sidney Crosby, and then went behind Elvis where someone knocked it in as he was kind of falling down. And it was just kind of a real nonsense goal, a nonsense goal that is not strictly Elvis's fault, right? The 3-1 goal, I will give you, that was a real Elvis special in a derogatory sense, right? Just how many times can we see him do that before we stop giving him the benefit of the doubt in terms of his decision making, right? And that wasn't necessarily the backbreaker because, again, that wasn't the game-winning goal, and I don't think it was really the backbreaker in terms of putting this game out of reach, right? The goal happened. If I could pull up when the actual goal was scored for a second, the 3-1 goal was scored with 10 minutes left, right? 11 minutes left. The 4-1 goal was an empty netter, which, as we all know, doesn't count. But I'm not going to sit here and say, yeah, Elvis should have been better in this game, because I think he was probably about as good as you can expect, as good as you can ask, right? And in the live episode on Friday, and I talked about it earlier last week as well, right? I was like, Elvis needs to step up in this game, because right now you've got 30 minutes of very average Elvis play and a game and a half of extremely good Jet play, right? Elvis needs to play well in this game. Otherwise, his chances of being the opening night starter are getting further and further away. Blue Jackets still have 2 preseason games left. My guess is Jet gets one, Elvis gets the other. I still don't think that they've made a decision on the opening night starter. I would do Greaves. I know that some people say that it should be Elvis. I know that some people say it's got to be Elvis, whether they agree with that or not, right? But there's still a non-zero amount of preseason hockey to play, right? And I do think Elvis stepped up in this game in a way that, frankly, I wasn't expecting. Again, I was fully expecting this game to be, again, for everyone to have a bad time, right? That's just how it went, right? But I thought that Elvis really stepped up in this game, and I don't think that this is necessarily like a sign that we're getting the Elvis of old back, because this happened last year, right? Like, we've seen that he is capable of pulling out incredible performances and then following those up with just the worst dud you've ever seen in your life, right? So I'm not going to sit here and say that this is proof that Elvis is the starting goalie, but he did do, like, I think he did enough to keep himself in the conversation, right? Again, still 2 games left. We're going to see how Jet plays in one, how Elvis plays in the other. I believe one game is against the Washington Capitals, and I don't know who the other game is against off the top of my head. I feel like this is an easy thing to find out, so we're going to do that real quick. Both of them are against Washington. Great. So they are at home against Washington on Tuesday, and then on the road against Washington on Saturday. Again, we'll see which game Jet gets and which game Elvis gets, but my guess is that both of these games are going to be heavy NHL regulars on both sides. Probably not super, like, you're not going to get all of your big boys playing on the away game probably, but you'll get most of it just because, and we're about to talk about this, Blue Jackets made a ton of roster cuts. I believe they have 25 players in camp now, or 26 players in camp, not counting injured players. So it's gonna be the big boys, probably on both sides. I don't know what the Washington training camp situation is right now, what the rosters look like, but my guess is that these next 2 games are going to be a pretty good indication of what this team is going to look like going into the regular season. We'll see Elvis in one game, we'll see Jet in another. So it's not like it's going to be, well, Elvis is going to get the home game, Jet's going to get the away game, or vice versa. I think it's they'll each get a game, and we'll see where they go from there. But I really don't think that a decision has been made for the opening night starter. We're going to see how these next 2 games go, which again really could go either way. We're going to take another quick break, and when we get back, a lot of AHL cuts, a lot of waiver news, a lot of surprises, disappointments, all of that stuff. We'll talk about the roster moves that were made yesterday here in just a second on Locked On Blue Jackets. First, I've got to tell you about FanDuel, because the NFL season is here, and FanDuel is they've got an offer that you don't want to miss. Right now, new customers can bet just $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win. Just pick a bet, put down $5, and if it hits, you're going to get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. I am a huge fan of FanDuel. I always use it for my insane same-game parlays. Picking just 3 random things to happen, and if I win, I get approximately $1 bajillion. But if you are a little bit more traditional, they've got player props, they've got normal parlays. Like, you can even jump in mid-game, and if there's a comeback brewing, put some money on the comeback happening. It's always a little bit more exciting when you've got something riding on the action, right? Whether you're a casual fan or you love diving into the stats, FanDuel makes the game day experience so much better. So what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com to download the app today and get started. Welcome back to Locked On Blue Jackets. We are gonna finish off the episode by talking about the cuts that were made, because there were a million of them. I don't think there were quite a million of them. I think there were like 13 or 14 players that were cut, but the camp roster stands at 25 players, 13 forwards, 9 defensemen, and 3 goalies. So I will say, of those 3 goalies, one of them is still Ivan Fedotov, who's going to be sent down probably at the end of training camp. Of the 9 defensemen, I don't think they want to carry that many defensemen. And obviously they will have to cut at least one of them. But one of those guys is Denton Matejchuk, who is injured at the minute, right? So in terms of movement, assigned to the Cleveland Monsters or loaned to the Cleveland Monsters, Luca Del Balbaluz, James Malatesta, Max McHugh, Luca Pinelli, Jack Williams, Corson Ceulemans, Stanislav Svozil, and Nolan Lalonde. The team has also placed the following players on waivers to assign to Cleveland: Hudson Fasching, Brendan Gaunt, and Mikhail Pucha. And Oiva Keskinen was assigned to Tappara, which is his Liga team in Finland, and defenseman Brendan Smith was released from his professional tryout contract. So there's a bunch of stuff that I want to talk about here. So we'll get straight into it. We'll talk about those last two. I was kind of surprised by both of these moves. Again, I've talked at length about how much I liked Brendan Smith during training camp and preseason. I thought he played very well. I thought he played well enough to earn a contract. I just didn't know where he was going to fit in, and I didn't think they had room for him, right? Not when you've got Severson and Gabranson and Christiansen all still fighting for 2 roster spots. There's no room for an 8th defenseman. They carried 8 or 9 defensemen last year, and it was a nightmare, right? So I get it. I am a little bit surprised that they couldn't make something work, but I'm not surprised that. Sorry, I'm surprised that they cut him, but I'm not surprised that they couldn't make something work, right? Because there's only so many spots, and the Blue Jackets they are where they are with the defensemen right now. Over Keskinen, I was surprised not to see him assigned to the AHL. However, I am led to believe by at CBJ Finn, I believe the Twitter handle is, who seems to be who will be the person to know about Finnish players on the Blue Jackets. He has the clause in his contract that basically says if he doesn't make the NHL, he can go back to Europe. He has a year left on his contract in La Liga, so my guess is we'll see him next spring. Hopefully, when the Monsters are making a playoff push, when La Liga season is over, we'll probably see him then. Again, surprised he's not going to be in the AHL a little bit, but I understand that they maybe gave him the choice and said, listen, we're not going to keep you in the NHL. You can go to the AHL or you can go back to Finland. And he has chosen to go back to Finland, which is probably fair. Give him another year in Finland. I think we'll probably see him in the AHL this time next year. I am kind of disappointed by that because I do think that he and Luca Pinelli had created some really, really good chemistry together. And I was excited to see those guys play together in the AHL this year. But it's not to be, right? In terms of other moves, the waivers are unsurprising. I think all 3 of those guys will get through. Brendan Gaunce might get claimed. Again, I thought he had a really strong preseason and training camp. Teams always want a veteran. I don't know that he's an NHL guy on a lot of teams, but if someone wants him to be the 13th forward, then I could see him getting claimed. People got a bit worried about Pucha being on waivers. I don't think he's going to get claimed. I think teams that need a Pucha already have one, right? Send him to Cleveland again. Let him cook there. I think he's probably going to be one of the first guys to be called up if there's an injury problem. Similarly, Luca Del Babaluz. This was the one that I think people are the most upset about. I am a little bit surprised and a little bit disappointed. I really would have him in the bottom 6 over probably 2 or 3 Blue Jackets that are currently still in camp, right? But again, I understand, I'd rather have him playing AHL, top AHL minutes over sitting in the press box at the NHL level, right? But I don't know. He's knocking on the door, right? My guess is that he does the Matejchuk thing this season, probably gets called up early if there's an injury and just makes it really difficult for them to send him back down. That's my guess anyway, because he's right there. He's really knocking on the door. I think he is NHL level. It just sucks that there are so many veterans that have contracts ahead of him that, for example, like Miles would. I'd play Luca Del Babaluz over Zach Aston Reese. I'd play Del Babaluz probably over Lundestrom. So there's the entire 4th line. I would play I'd play Luca Del Babaluz over all 3 of those guys. Obviously, we don't know what's going to happen with Chinikov yet. He has spent some time in the top 6 and he spent some time in the bottom 6. Was rotating in on the 4th line in practice yesterday, so I don't know what's going on with Chinikov. If they trade him, depending on what the return is, that opens up a roster spot that is probably going to go to Del Babaluz. But overall, there's nothing super startling about these moves. They are what they are. A couple of moves that did surprise me is some of the guys that didn't get sent down. So I was surprised to see that Christian Jaros was not sent down because I haven't really seen anything from him that thrills me at the NHL level. It was very much just that's a guy that's there, right? And similarly, Damon Hunt. has been a perfectly cromulent preseason guy, right? Again, he's not going to make the opening night roster. I don't know what the plan is with him, but like I haven't seen anything from him this preseason that tells me like, yeah, this is a guy that's going to be in the top 6 or 7 defensemen. I do wonder if those guys are sticking around until they know whether Denton Matejchuk is 100%. Sounds like he did a full training session yesterday with the main squad. I wonder if we'll see him in Tuesday's preseason game against Washington. But I do wonder if they're keeping one of Hunt or Yaros around for those purposes. I also believe that Yaros has to go through waivers. I don't know what Damon Hunt's waiver situation is. Let me find that out real quick, because I wonder if it's just that they don't want to throw everyone on waivers at the same time. So Damon Hunt is not on the Puckpedia list, which is annoying. Here he is. He's only 23 and hasn't got a ton of NHL experience. So my guess is, yeah, he's still eligible for waivers. So Yaros is not. Yaros will have to go through waivers to go to the AHL. Damon Hunt will not. But I do wonder if both of those guys are sticking around just as like extra bodies, for in case Denton Matejchuk's not ready to do his thing. That's my guess. Anyway, I still don't love I'm not willing to throw a fit about this yet, but the Provorov-Severson pairing continues to be a thing. And I don't know if that is a thing that they're going to keep trying, or if it's just because Matejchuk's not 100% yet. I don't know. But it makes me nervous, Dean. Makes me nervous when you keep doing things like this. So we'll see how that goes. Again, we'll know more when Matejchuk is 100%. Sounds like he's almost there, which is good news. And we'll deal with the Provorov-Severson pairing when we have to, because it's going to be an adventure either way. It's going to create lots of offense, and it's going to give up all of the defense. We'll see how it goes. That's all I've got for today. Tomorrow we will probably talk a little bit more about the preseason, how it's going. We'll see if any more moves are made. There'll be a game tomorrow night that we'll do a little bit of talk about. We'll see who's in the who's on the team for that. Whether we'll see Matejchuk making his preseason debut, I don't know. All of that good stuff we'll do tomorrow. I've been Jay Foster. You can find me on Blue Sky at JAKOBFYSTER. You can find the show at LO_Blue Jackets on Twitter. You can email me at lockedonbluejackets@gmail.com if you have comments, questions, criticisms. And thank you once again for listening, for making it your first listen of the day. We're available on all podcast platforms and over on YouTube. Until tomorrow, make sure you stay locked on.